ISTE team, it has been a whirlwind of awesome these past few weeks as we have unpacked the ISTE standards, dissected popular frameworks in TPAC and SAMR, and applied principles of Wiggins' understanding by design to our own group's lesson designs. Whether the learner is a student in the classroom or a colleague, our focus continues to be grounded in research and best practice. Jennifer Gonzalez, founder of Cult of Pedagogy and author to the popular Teacher's Guide to Tech series, illuminates that technology can be tricky, even for the most tech-savvy person, and if you don't have a good plan, you might give up before you ever really get started. A concept that has risen out of our discussions and coursework is the importance of using more than one framework to transform our lesson designs using technology. Interestingly, after a deep dive by our own cohort of educational leaders into the literature on the SAMR framework, followed up by a group analysis of the same lesson by everyone, the results were all over the spectrum. Almost half of the group placed the lesson at the enhancement level and the other half at the transformative level, with a few of the participants abstaining from submitting a response for what I would assume is because they cannot decide where the lesson should be placed. This is the exact scenario that is highlighted in Julie Graber and Dr. Scott McLeod's book on harnessing technology for deeper learning, when they share this is not an isolated instance and that technology integrationists who are supposed to be experts in technology integration and familiar with SAMR often cannot agree where to place a lesson within the framework. Frameworks such as TPAC and SAMR are great conceptual models. However, limiting and addressing how the technology being used in the lesson addresses the learning goals. Rewinding to our first week's Zoom conference, it was suggested that we could optionally explore additional frameworks, one of which included Liz Kolb's Engage, Enhance, and Extend framework, otherwise known as the Triple E. From Kolb's book, Learning First, Technology Second, she mentions that the Triple E framework attempts to define what it looks like to effectively integrate technology tools into a lesson while supporting learning goals. This is accomplished by considering the use of the technology in the lesson through the lens of engagement, enhancement, and extension. As technology coaches, we are excited to share with you all our lesson, which not only provides an introduction and additional background to the Triple E framework, but provides our teacher learners, you all, the opportunity to get some hands-on experience using the rubrics of the framework, allowing us to assess if the technology learning tools we are using in our own lessons is worth it.
Hi, good morning. I'd like to take a few minutes and talk about our lesson with you. Our professional development session is designed to take about 60 minutes and it's geared toward educators of any level. We envision that this could be during a divisional staff meeting or a department meeting or even at an in-service to start the school year off. The title of our lesson is Technology Learning Tools, Are They Worth It? And at the bottom we wanted to put some emphasis on the learner standard for the educators, and so we're including some hashtags so that they can teachers can share out their learning to their global PLNs. Introductory slide here. It basically talks about the lesson itself and why we're here. Our session is designed to both introduce and give some practice on the Triple E framework. And so using this framework, we can help give our group of educators a common language and research-based tool to evaluate technology in the classroom. Throughout these slides, we've actually given some accommodations to both in-person and remote learners in case we have schools that are still with remote learners. This slide is our tech coaches, Jordan, Joshua, Ileana, and myself, along with their Twitter handles in case people want to connect with them. And now on to the lesson. So our lesson is broken up into 4 parts. We have an inclusion section. We have a section on frameworks and talking about them and why would we use them. We also have a practice section where we take the Triple E and we practice it against some lessons. And then we have an exit ticket. I'll go into those in a little more detail. So for the inclusion section, we have a warm-up activity where we're actually sorting. So it's called an EdTech Affinity Sort. It takes about 10 minutes. If you're in person, you'll have these printed off and laying on your table. And what we're doing here is we have some common logos that teachers might be familiar with. And then they're asked to group them any way they want, by familiarity, usefulness, emotional response, etc. For those remote learners, we have a Desmos activity where they can do this online. The next section of our lesson is talking about frameworks and talking about vocabulary and how to evaluate and their usefulness for reflecting on tech use. There's a website we point them to that kind of goes over some of the common ones, so the RAT and the SAMR, the TIM, TPAC, and EEE. And we'll talk about those briefly so that we can get people started, and then we'll get into the EEE. On the EEE, there's a video on EEE's website. We provide a link to their website. So if we went out to their website on the About page, there's a 11-minute video, so this can be something that's assigned ahead of time. Or you can get into small groups and discuss this along with the visual here, the graphic that kind of explains it in text form. So it kind of gets teachers warmed up, and then afterward we can have some discussion about that in the whole group. After we're done learning about the EEE framework, we'll then practice it. So we'll go into our practice section of our lesson where we, if you're in person, we'll have rubrics printed off on your tables. And we have links to 2 different videos which talk about a lesson that a teacher has done in their class somewhere in the world. And basically what the teacher is assigned to do here is, or the group is assigned to do, is to take that lesson and evaluate it using the EEE framework. This practice section also has a digital version of this rubric, so if you don't have it printed off, you can go to this digital version and do the same rubric and scoring. And then at the end you'll see the score. So the second half of our practice section, we actually have, we asked teachers when they came into the lesson to have brought with them a lesson that they've used in their class previously or one that they're going to use this year. And we have them go through the same exercise. We have them take the rubric, go through the lesson, and evaluate their lesson based on that. They can either do that individually, they can trade with their group, they can all use the same lesson. I guess it depends on the comfortableness of the group. And then finally, our exit slip, we actually ask teachers then to go out to a Padlet. Again, it works both digitally and in person. We have them write one fact that they know now that they didn't know before, one question that they still have, one aha moment that they might have had throughout the session, and then one action step that they will take as a result of what they learned. That kind of wraps up the session here. We also have some extension activities, actually some extension tools. One of them is a Wakelet, kind of like a Padlet, but really useful for collecting resources. And this one here is basically a couple of tech tools that can be used in lessons that connect to the EEE. If you wanted to have this as a year-long goal for educators or for a specific department, they can use this. Ileana has put together a nice spreadsheet where you can track growth over time. And that link is also in the slide deck. So thank you very much for watching. Hopefully you enjoyed it.
In this professional learning experience, our learners, or students as they are referred to throughout the standards, are the educators that will be delivering transformational learning experiences to our students. We are confident that 6 out of these 7 educator standards are evident throughout the learning experience. As we undertook this project, our goal was to empower teachers with the confidence to integrate technology into their classrooms in meaningful ways. As we developed this learning experience, we were challenged with new research and new approaches to meet this goal. This led us to the EEE framework, which is supported by research. Through the experience, we are able to model not only to teachers, but perhaps also to any other coaches involved, this tool for evaluation. We're also able to create opportunities to model new tools that can be implemented in the classroom. Collaboration was an integral part of creating this professional learning experience. And as we think of the participant teachers as our learners, we are also creating opportunities where we can co-learn with them as they explore new digital tools that they might want to implement in the classroom. Educators take ownership of their learning goals when they track their progress as they evaluate critically their implementation of technology in the classroom. This is a great way for them to, in turn, model this very important skill to their students. Throughout the activity, our learners, who are the participant educators, are given choice and voice in the implementation of the EEE framework. The choice of the lesson they choose, the grouping they choose, and the action steps that they will take are unique to their context, and this allows them to share their learning as they see necessary. Although we are able to meet several of the educator standards, we recognize that some of the standards for this particular experience are best met through the ISTE standards for coaches. Specifically, we found that the collaborator and the learning designer standards were the most appropriate.